I've been lurking. I've been stalking. I don't really play Star Rail that much anymore, for the most part. I have a friend maintain my account. Every now and again, I log in, I do whatever in-game content I want to do, and then I log out. And I think the game is much more enjoyable that way. That being said, over the past few months, I have seen the community essentially implode from the inside. A majority of content creators who have made this game their bread and butter have seemed to turn on it. Gotcha Smack is a good example. Braxophone doesn't seem to be enjoying the game that much anymore. A lot of other bigger content creators. The point I'm trying to make is that a majority of content creators seem to be getting over it at this point, and they're moving on to the next biggest game, because Star Rail's been going down a very predatory road. That being said, I don't really spend a lot of money on the game. I definitely don't make it my job, and I don't play it anywhere near as all the other people. But I still think it's okay. It just has a lot of flaws, and there's a couple things that could easily be implemented to fix the game, but they're not going to do that. Regardless, I would like to at least make this video documenting those things so that later on, when they don't happen, I can be like, I told you so. Or if they do happen and they do make the game more enjoyable, I can still say I told you so. So it's, it's really a win-win for me. That being said, gacha. It's in the name of the game. We all like to play gacha because, let's face it, we like gambling or slop, but mostly gambling. That being said, I am willing to bet that a majority of the people that are listening to this video right now have either quit a gacha game because they lost something in the gacha, or they know somebody that quit the gacha game because they lost something in the gacha. It's a very fair statement to have. It doesn't feel good when you save all your currency for God knows how long, pull on a new unit, and then just get absolutely fucked. And before you write me a sob story about the time you lost your waifu, I just want to make it well known that right here, I have lost every single 50-50 from Sparkle's debut banner in 2.0 all the way up until Silverwolf's most recent rerun in 3.6. So trust me, I know what it feels like, but it doesn't have to be that way, because MiHoYo, believe it or not, actually has a pretty good gacha system in another one of their games, that being Genshin Impact. I know, hold on. Before, I know Star Rail players absolutely hate it when their game is compared to any other game in a negative context, and love when their game is compared to any other game in a positive context, but it is relevant because these games are made by the same company. While Star Rail players rightfully point out that they receive more currency than Genshin players, it really doesn't mean that much, because Genshin only receives around 20 pulls less per patch, and they have a much better, more generous gacha because of a hidden system that isn't really explained in the game called the Intertwined Fate system. You probably saw this system clickbaited by a bunch of YouTubers when it released back in 3.0 and still don't to this day fully understand how it works. So leave that to me. Essentially, the Intertwined Fate system is a hard pity that forces probability within a similar range of what you would expect. Because while there is a system in the game to make it to where you win every other 5-star, there is still a 50-50 win rate, which can heavily lower your odds of actually having a 50-50 win rate. So even though in a worst case scenario, half of every 5-star you get is going to be limited, you still are losing a 50-50 a lot. For example, me, I lose 50-50 a lot. This system forces that 50-50 win rate to be more in line with what it actually is. It works like this. You start off at a value of 0. Once you pull a 5-star character, there are 2 paths it can go down. One, you don't get the character, in which case you go down to the next stage of the Intertwined Fate system. If you get the character, then it resets. Your next 5-star will be guaranteed because you lost to 50-50. The next 50-50 after that has the same odds of 50-50. If you win this 50-50, then it resets back to 0 and you lose your 1 point. If you then lose the 50-50 again, you get a second point, and then your next 5-star is guaranteed because you lost the 50-50. At this point, you've lost 2 50-50s in a row, and you have gained 2 limited time 5-stars. You're now on your third 50-50. This is when the Intertwined Fate system kicks in. Because you have gained 2 stacks from losing 2 50-50s in a row, your next 50-50 has a 75% chance of being the limited time 5-star. This is a capturing radiance. If you again lose the 75-25, then your next 5-star is guaranteed, and then the next one after that, when you get to your what would be a 50-50, will automatically turn into a capturing radiance, guaranteeing the character. So essentially, what that means is the probability of your 50-50 is forced within the realm of statistics to match that. So every time you lose a 50-50, you get pity, essentially. This means that in Genshin, you can pretty consistently and pretty reliably guarantee 2 5-star characters of a limited quantity in a row. It helps to break the very long 50-50 loss chains that can happen in these games. Like I said, we all know somebody that has. Now obviously, this is statistics, and reality often doesn't reflect them, but to put it very very, very simply, this system essentially makes it to where of every 3 to 4 characters you pull in Genshin, 2 of them are guaranteed to be limited characters, which means throughout an entire patch cycle, as a free-to-play player, you are guaranteed at least 4 limited time characters. And I know that sounds really low, but as a pay-to-play player, if you're assuming you're getting Welcome Battle Pass, this guarantees you 7. So it's actually pretty consistent to get every character in the game. As a matter of fact, I would have every single limited time 5-star in the game by now if I didn't C6 my Farina, and then C2 my Venti, and then C1 my Ito, and then get, Kanich C4, but we don't talk about that. The point is, it is a much more generous gacha in the long term. But there's more to gacha than just 5 stars, right? There's also 4 stars. Oh wait, we don't have those in Star Rail. At the time of recording, it has been well over a year since a 4-star character has debuted, with the last one being Mode with Fei Zhao's release. Now, personally, I am of the humble opinion that a lot of 4-star characters in gacha games are cope, and this goes for these games on release. Star Rail, unfortunately, is no exception. Even on release, a lot of its 4-star characters were not that great, with a lot of players pointing to Natasha and Lynx, who, sorry, even at the time, they were pretty mid. Regardless, a majority of 4-star characters exist to give players that aren't already pulling new characters a consistent addition to their roster, because for a lot of players, for a long time, this will be all they have, especially because in Star Rail, a lot of the best premium teams are very, very, very expensive, looking at around 4 to 6 cost total on average. Hell, most modern teams are looking at an 8 cost total now, with the only exceptions being teams that have Remembrance Trailblazer. Now, there is an argument I've heard against 4 stars from time to time that sounds solid on paper, but very quickly falls under even the most minor of scrutiny. And that is, you don't need 4 stars in Star Rail, because the game gives you so many free 5 stars, which I'm very iffy on that. Star Rail is a lot more like Honkai Impact than it is like Genshin Impact, as you could probably imagine. A majority of the characters that come out nowadays have been leaps and bounds better than what has released in the past, which has resulted in a lot of the characters in the game getting just brutally power crept. Early on, if you were hitting 130k on an ultimate attack, that was big shit. Nowadays, I'm hitting multiple hundreds of thousands on normal attack, and it's only been 2.5 years. To compensate, a majority of what used to be limited time 5-star characters have essentially been given to the player base for free, because they basically had to be. No matter what anybody tells you, nowadays, a majority of players playing Star Rail are aware enough to know that if they try to pull a limited character, like Argent, they're wasting their current, with the only reason existing to pull a character being if you like it, which is a fair enough reason, but a majority of people that play these games aren't going to do that, and Mihoyo knows that. So what they're doing instead is they are giving you old limited time 5 stars and standard banner 5 stars in exchange for 4 stars. In the past year, we have received 2 free standard characters with the option to pick either Topaz or Ranmei or Luocha instead. In addition, we've also received my boy Archer as well as Daniel, 2 limited time characters, which, I'm gonna be honest, they vary in range of usefulness, with Archer being essentially useless if you don't already have a lot of investment in premium characters who haven't been around for a while like Sparkle, and Mr. Daniel Hung, who's actually pretty strong. He's pretty good, but his light cone options are not very good. These characters are essentially what players get now instead of 4 stars, because 4 stars just aren't made anymore, which allow them to further expand their roster by giving them what is essentially a 4-star in power, because let's face it, a majority of standard characters aren't that useful anymore, and this makes up for it, except it really doesn't, because unfortunately, a lot of old 5 stars and 4 stars are completely fucking useless, and if a character shows up on the purchasable 5-star banner, just go ahead and assume that character sucks ass. So while it does allow you to expand your roster, it doesn't really mean anything when pretty much none of these characters can be brought into the in-game content. Obviously, there are some exceptions. Dan is pretty good, but that's it. He's the only exception. In addition to that, they're just not very reliable. In old Star Rail, if you would have pulled on any banner period, you would have got a new 4-star. But now, you are entirely locked to waiting for the devs to give you something. There's no telling if we're ever going to get another free 5-star. Now, obviously, there are reliable leaks that you can look at, but even then, I don't really trust a lot of them, and neither should you. 9 times out of 10, if a player were to start playing the game right now and then just save up their currency until the next limited time 5-star comes out, anything that they could pull on that banner is going to be the better than what they'll give you for free. So this isn't a solution. Making more 4 stars would give players more choice choice. And of course, the 4 stars would power creep the old 4 stars, which would in turn make them more useful for the current meta. This would make it so that players would actually be able to, I don't know, fucking save their currency, because it is ungod how many 5 stars come out in Star Rail. We're looking on an average of about 2 a patch, and you can't just get the 5 star. No. You have to get their light cone too, because unfortunately, a majority of the newest, latest, coolest 5 stars are of the new path, which, in my humble opinion, I feel as though the Remembrance pathway only exists so that it could introduce a new light cone system so that you had to purchase these new light cones for every new character. And hell, if that wasn't enough, it's gotten to the point where a majority of new limited time 5-star characters in Star Rail feel like they have to have their light cone in order to function, with base kit abilities locked behind them. It's so bad that a majority of people that play these games just automatically assume if you have a character, you have their light, which A, kinda sucks because now most players feel like they have to get it, but the main reason why I don't like it is it really puts a damper on playstyle and player expression, because nowadays a majority of characters that come out, 5 stars and 4 stars, limited or otherwise, feel like they have a designated best in slot team, and characters are designed to specifically function with that team. So one of the biggest reasons why I got into Star Rail, which was for team building, is now effectively dead, because when I get a character, there are only a handful of options that I know that character is going to be good with, and if I use it with anything else, it will either have anti-synergy or just it sucks. Now, using an objectively worse team usually isn't that big of a deal, but this isn't a game like Genshin where the highest bar of in-game content is fairly low. Hell, in Genshin, fucking 1.0 4 stars are still viable to this day. Hell, not even viable, they're good, which is not what I can say for Star Rail, which allows Genshin to have a very diverse team comp variety, because the barrier of entry is so fucking low. Pretty much anything can get in there, which causes its own problems, but the point is, you can make shit work in that game mode. Whereas in Star Rail, the only team comp that I made on my own that I thought was fun and actually was able to win in in-game scenarios was a stupid-ass team comp I did with Silverwolf, Ranmei, Tribby, and Hyacine. And all that team did was inflict infinite weakness break, breaking bosses in 2 hits, and just getting a ton of extra damage. Was it able to win? Yes. Was it good? Fuck no. I mean, it was alright, but there are so many other better options, because characters nowadays feel like they are built to function with 2 or 3 other characters, or built to support 2 or 3 other characters. So the freedom of expression is essentially dead. You know as soon as you get a character what they're good at, and you either can use it with that and it'll be really strong, or you can't and it'll suck. And let me tell you, that's a shit feeling, especially when you're newer to the game. That's why Star Rail struggles to keep new players. Hell, I've fucking been playing the game since launch, and there was periods of times where I would take a break for like 2 months and then come back and just get absolutely fucked because, in that time, Poop Gun 3001 power crept Poop Gun 3000, and now all the new in-game has to scale to Poop Gun 3001, and that sucked. The solution is very simple. Introduce 4 stars, they'll power creep the old 4 stars, they'll be viable, and then lower the fucking health scaling on the MOC, or Pure Fiction, or Apoc Shadow, stuff like that. Does it have to be a huge HP decrease? Fuck no, it can be like 30%. And I know some of you hear me say 30%, you're like, oh, that's so much. This is your reminder that in the past 6 months, the HP scaling in MOC has gone up by 63%. So it would be the equivalent of going back like 4 patches. Again, that's not how statistics work. It would actually be a little bit more than that. It'd be like going back to 3.0. Some would say that would ruin the balance, but to that I say, the top tier meta characters are still going to shit on everything, regardless. The only thing this would do is make it to where lower tier characters can compete, which they currently cannot. There is already an in-game mode that was just recently introduced that allows players that spend an amount of money to go into that mode and test their whale level character. If they want to have something to test their limits, go play in that. But anyway, that's about it. I'm pretty much out of things to rant about. You can give me your opinions down below if you agree or disagree. Like, comment, subscribe, and if you hate me, let me know. Talk to you later. Peace.